Hey, good morning, guys. I just came out to sit, and I'm out in the park and started thinking about, so many people are worried and scared right now about everything that's going on in the world, and so many people are incredibly pissed off. And in one way, nothing's changed. Just the problems, especially in the political system, they've just gotten amplified, but they're the same problems that have been around all along, and nobody was aware of it. And so, it seems like things are getting worse, but it's like I've seen it all along, and so I'm not surprised by it. I'm actually glad that the worst is finally being seen, and and so there's like this huge change happening socially, where so many people are waking up and so many people are saying no to what they used to either blindly or begrudgingly agree to. And and it's happening on a large social scale. And probably why that's happening on the large social scale is because it's happening, on an individual scale too. And thinking about that got me thinking about how things happen on so many levels. And so that sparked the thought about how spiritual growth and psychological health are no longer separate things like they used to be seen as. And it was always this way, just people didn't see it. We only thought of psychology as dealing with crazy people. And and that's kind of how the system wanted everybody to think of it. The people that had problems were crazy, so we could dismiss them. And it turns out, so many of the crazy people, all they were doing was reacting to the world around them. They probably went through some major frickin' traumas and couldn't deal with them, didn't have an outlet to deal with it in a way where they could actually heal, and so they were just labeled and marginalized. And that happens on every level in every relationship to some degree. And the word certainty kept popping in my head. And it's like, if I'm angry about something or don't like something, it creates that uncertainty of not knowing what's going on or not knowing how to deal with what's going on. And so if I get angry and judgmental, then I get a sense of certainty. And if I'm certain, then I feel like I'm right. And that makes you wrong. And and you can see that in the political system. You can see it in your bedroom, you can see it in your living room, you see it at work. Whenever somebody's upset, there's two ways to deal with it. You can either say, "You're wrong, shut up," or you can take what seems like the kinder way and say, "You're wrong, here's why you're wrong, I want you to not be wrong, so do it this way." But even doing it that way without the openness and without listening, without understanding why somebody else was doing it the way they're doing it, they may be doing it because they've got a good reason to, based on their experience, and they're going to keep doing it the way they're doing it, unless that old experience, gets straightened out. Even, and it may be that they've got a good point that you haven't thought of, and it's your job to listen. But people always come to me because they're not feeling good. They come to me because they're upset and something in their life isn't working and they feel stuck and they felt stuck for a long time and they're tired of feeling stuck. And invariably, it's always old shit that happened to us that never should have happened. We went through stuff that we never should have gone through, and we didn't have the support and guidance that we needed at the time. And so much of the time, when things happen to us, it happened to us in a way where we felt like it was our fault. And so because we feel like it was our fault, we got shame around it, and that sort of encourages us not to talk about it because we don't want to expose our own wrongdoing. We don't want to get blamed. And and we're seeing in our culture, like, victims get blamed and marginalized. And the truth is they went through something horrible by somebody that should never have been doing what they were doing. And until the victims are listened to, the victim's going to keep that trauma in their body, and they're going to keep acting in ways that don't support their own highest good until they heal. And here's the thing, the victimizers are going through the same thing. It's not just that these seeming monsters are just bad people. They were trained to be horrible too. They were trained to ignore their heart and to be angry and to completely ignore their soul. And that's why they end up doing the horrible shit that they do. And that's part of the problem as well. And and whether you see it and are upset about it happening on a cultural level, or it's it's just something that's happening at home, either way, the work is still the same. And here's the thing, the more we deal with our own shit, the stronger, the bigger of a population that we have of people that are doing things really well, where they don't have that separation between their heart and their mind. And a friend of mine years ago, she was like, "Oh, I don't like dealing with feelings. Feelings, they're just confusing." And I was like, "Well, then you've got a lot of unhealed stuff in there. And of course it's confusing. It doesn't fit what you see in your head because your heart is telling you a different story based on what's happened to you." Because when we go through hard shit, we end up telling a story to try and make sense of it. And when that story, it's a way of survival. So I don't have a good name for them, but I'm sort of bouncing around. The temporary name is survival stories. They're the stories where we blame ourselves, or we think that feelings are bad, or we're bad, or you can't trust people. And it's like, some people are not trustworthy, absolutely, and some people are. And how you tell the difference is by paying attention to your heart. Your heart's going to tell you 100% every time whether or not somebody's trustworthy. And the more clear you are in your own heart, the more, the more clear your life is going to be, and the better decisions you're going to make about what you do and who you do it with. And it's those old survival stories that usually get us in trouble, because we tell those stories long enough and start to believe that they are reality, because they make the lens through which we see the world. So if you've been wronged, you start seeing potential wrongdoings all around you. You start seeing, judgment. You start seeing betrayal all around you, and that may not actually be what's going on right now. And the more clear we are in our own heart, the more we heal, the more of what's really going on we can see, and the better our lives go. Like the super simplistic way of seeing it is when you think good thoughts, you feel good feelings, and everything gets better. When you think really shitty thoughts, you have really shitty feelings, and your life stays shitty. That's just the way it is. And it's on you. And I'm absolutely not saying just think positive. I'm saying put the hurts, the hard things in a proper frame so that you can see them clearly. So, people come to me, and the first thing that usually comes out of their mouth is like they're making a case why what's going on in their life is not their fault. And I get it. It's not their fault. Now, that's about judgment and blame, and that's like the first hurdle that we got to get past. And once you know it's not your fault, then you can get on to which parts are your responsibility. And that's a whole different conversation than blame. When, because that worthiness piece where, blame and judgment come in, that's one of those absolutely core ideas that we've got to get settled first before any other healing can begin. And so it's like once people convince me that it's not their fault, which doesn't take much convincing, they've got to convince themselves, and how they do that is by feeling accepted. Once they feel acceptance, then they can get on and say, then the conversation shifts to, what parts of the situation are yours? Did you stay with somebody who was not trustworthy, and why? What was going on inside? Not assessing blame again, but saying what needs were you scared of not getting met by staying in this relationship, once you felt like, it wasn't a good place to be. Or, that's just one example, but there's situations all over the world, and once you learn to pay attention to it, it's one of those once you see it, you can't unsee it things. When we start to see how we defend against being seen as unworthy, even within ourselves, like that opens a whole new awareness, a whole new door of introspection and outrospection. And and that's just one of the things that we've got to become aware of within ourselves and as a culture. It's like this is a powerful time of growth and awakening for our culture and for us as individuals. And the deeper we look inside, and the easiest place to look is in our relationships. How are your relationships? Have you given up on relationships? Are your relationships, are they going great? And if they are going great, are you connecting as deeply as possible? And maybe everything's going great, but you've never gone as deep into connection, as deep into vulnerability as you could. And all the people that are connecting incredibly deeply, they're doing pretty good, and they're not scared by what's going on culturally, because they're at peace within themselves. They're okay. And really one of the things is like when you're okay with your own hurts and your own, the easiest way to say it is when you're okay with your own darkness inside, you're not going to get triggered and scared by the darkness in other people and the darkness in the world. Because when you know how to handle it within yourself, when you know how to set those boundaries within yourself with your own thinking and thinking really shitty thoughts, then you can easily handle the people around you when they bring their own darkness, their own fear, their own anger. And as a culture, it's time for us to grow up. Like, as a culture, it's time to get out of the kiddie pool and embrace who we truly are. And as we do that, there's not only interpersonal growth and inner growth, there's also spiritual growth. And that's the journey we're on. And so those are the thoughts from meditation this morning. Hope you guys are doing well. Love you, bless you. Hope you're having a great day. Take care.